Cypress Development Corp's flagship lithium project is located just east of Albemarle's Silver Peak mine in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. A 12-hole exploration drill program for lithium-enriched claystone on Cypress's 100% controlled properties is now underway. Cypress Development Corp trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the Pink's CYDVF, and on Frankfurt's C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Jordan Bateman, Vice President of Communications for the Independent Contractors and Business Association in BC. His website, icba.ca. Welcome back to the show, Jordan.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
Jordan, what could Federal Finance Minister Bill Morneau do to help the construction business, not just in British Columbia, but across Canada in his budget that comes up next week?
Well, there's many things he could do. First of all, he could take a hard look at steel tariffs, which aren't the sexiest topic, but very important when you're talking construction, because every road, every concrete building, every SkyTrain, every Site C dam, every Broadway station, all that stuff relies on steel rebar to reinforce it. And right now we have the federal government is in kind of a slap fight with Donald Trump over steel. What they've done is they've put a tariff on Canadian steel coming in from overseas. The idea being that all Canadians should buy steel from Hamilton and steel country in Canada, in Eastern Canada. The problem is this has driven up the price of steel rebar. There are no plants that can supply the lower mainland, and so you're having to essentially transport all of this steel across the country into Vancouver, rather than what used to happen, which is it would come by ship from places like Asia and Turkey at a cheaper rate. So he could definitely address that. He could also take a look at the overall competitiveness, and his time as finance minister has been marked by two things: higher than promised deficits. So going into the red during some of the best financial years in Canada's history, and by not addressing the competitive crisis. So, America is cutting taxes left, right, and center. They're cutting regulation. I see today Trump is proposing, slashing the EPA even further. There's all sorts of things going on in the States, making it cheaper and cheaper and cheaper to do business there, while here, the price is going up and up and up. And so, this is a bad scene when it comes to trying to attract investment to BC. It's, and to Canada in general. So, if you could just address the competitive crisis, that would go a long way to assuaging the concerns of a lot of business folks.
When it comes to regulation, we've had more regulations added when they've had more taken off. What difference, and could you give us an example of how much more red tape a Canadian company has to slash its way through before it can actually get down to doing some business?
Well, it seems like in the United States, they're reorienting all of their agencies to be, to look to how to say yes to things. So, oil, for example, oil and gas is booming in the Dakotas, is booming in Pennsylvania, it's booming in California, whereas in Canada, we're seeing oil and gas investment evaporate. We're seeing natural gas wells being abandoned, we're seeing oil wells, not producing. They've just completely changed the way they look at these things. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be, environmental regulation and that we shouldn't be making sure that, we have as clean an industry as possible. But the default position of government shouldn't be just to always say no to everything. And then you have to spend billions of dollars and, a dozen years to try to convince them to do otherwise. At the same time, Barack Obama was in town last week. This is a guy who killed the Keystone Pipeline and basically, greatly damaged Canada's economic prospects. He is treated like a conquering hero by a bunch of starry-eyed Vancouverites. But, while he's doing that and getting credit for, stopping that pipeline, under his government, built dozens, allowed dozens, maybe hundreds of other pipelines across their country in order to prop up the American oil and gas industry. So, it's a bit hypocritical for Canadians to think that, or to constantly tie our own hands in dealing with this. So, you had all the different climate regulations, Clean BC, carbon taxes, more expensive power from BC Hydro, more expensive car insurance, the highest gas prices on the continent, higher corporate taxes, higher small business taxes, employer health tax. All of these different things make it a very expensive jurisdiction to do business in. And if you're looking at two projects, one in the States and one in Canada, one in British Columbia, you're crazy not to go to the United States to do business there. It's just such an easier path.
Well, I see Washington State says nice things about tankers that maybe environmentalists in BC would like to hear. But aren't they just propping up their own business because they don't want to see more competition from BC in that area?
Yeah, totally. Jay Inslee, who is pretending to run for president, even though he doesn't have a hope in heck, he's the governor of Washington State, and he's got John Horgan absolutely bamboozled. Horgan's there praising him and, shaking his hand, and, Jay Inslee cares about climate and all that stuff. No, Jay Inslee doesn't care about any of that. Jay Inslee cares about keeping jobs in Washington State. That's why he's more than happy to support the premier in fighting the Trans Mountain Pipeline. He'll claim it's about southern resident orcas, all the while, all of these, hundreds of American oil tankers go up and down our coast, no problem. But, the one that we need for Trans Mountain, that would be a big disaster. So, yeah, John Horgan is, I don't know why he's sucking up to the Americans so much. Maybe he thinks this guy could be president and solve all his problems somehow, but it's ridiculous, and it's all about, Americans care about one thing, Americans, and we need to learn that in Canada.
Property taxes are killing small businesses in Vancouver. A great example was a chocolate shop that had been on Robson Street for decades, but because their little 2-story building had been sold to developers to become a 35-story tower, I believe, they all of a sudden were taxed as if they were the owners of a 75-story tower instead of a 2-story building, and they were taxed out of existence. Is there any solution to that? Should they wait until the development is done and the businesses move into that before charging them the taxes that kind of development would generate?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, there's such a disparity now between some of these properties, what they are today and what they could be down the road, that it's, made it, in the old days, it was closer in value, so it didn't really matter as much. Now it does matter a lot. And we consider all the different taxes being piled on to small business. Although, Jim, you and I think we should definitely go out on the road and defend the honor of as many chocolate-making businesses as possible, because I think you and I both have had more than our fair share.
Well, maybe I'm not so much of the chocolate file, but I'll tell you, domestic bliss depends on it.
You think that would be an easy product to make money at, but everyone who doesn't love chocolate. But no, government's found a way to tax chocolatiers out of business, which is pretty sad.
We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after this.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. Work programs are underway in Finland and Canada. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol ADD, on Frankfurt symbol 82A1, and the OTCQB symbol ASDZF. Please visit our website arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
Grand Portage Resources recently completed the 2018 drill program on its 100% controlled Herbert Gold Discovery property located in the prolific Juneau Belt in southeast Alaska. Drill results are expected through late 2018. Past drill results included numerous multi-ounce gold assays on multiple veins. Grand Portage trading symbols are GPG on the TSX Venture, GPTRF on the OTCQB, and GPB on Frankfurt. For more information, please visit our website, grandportage.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Jordan Bateman. Jordan, you were again in court arguing about the provincial government's move to have only certain unions build certain projects. What's the latest on that?
Yeah, ICBA and a number of other groups, including the BC Construction Association, the Vancouver Regional Construction Association, the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, the BC Chamber of Commerce, a CLAC, the union, the Canada West Construction Union, and then a handful of construction companies and construction workers. We are in court battling the government over their project labor agreements and this monopoly sweetheart deal that they gave 19 building trades unions, who coincidentally just happened to give them $2.5 million in campaign donations. So we're in court. I think we filed it last September or August, and it took until the end of February to get our first court date. And even then, it wasn't really to hear much evidence. It was to try to stop the provincial government from claiming that we should be doing this in front of the Labor Relations Board rather than a judge. The government, of course, appoints the Labor Relations Board, so they'd love to have their case heard by the people they appoint. We, on the other hand, would prefer to have a judicial review, and we think that there's a compelling legal case why that should be. The bottom line here is the government's trying to punt this down the road as far as possible because they know that, every day that gets closer to construction on the Patello Bridge or the Broadway subway or some of these projects in eastern BC on Highway 1, the less, the better it is for them and the harder it is for us to get these sweetheart deals ripped up.
We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after this.
I'm Douglas Mason, CEO of Naturally Splendid, symbol NSP on the TSX Venture Exchange. Naturally Splendid is a biotechnology and consumer products company focused on the global cannabis and health markets. Naturally Splendid is expanding distribution in this rapidly growing market with products currently in Canada, the USA, South Korea, Germany, and Australia. To view our comprehensive company presentation and for more information, please visit our website at naturallysplendid.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Jordan Bateman. Jordan, two massive projects that need to be done in the Lower Mainland. Replace the Massey Tunnel crossing on the Fraser River and replace the Patello Bridge, which is an aging bridge that literally has gaps in it because parts are falling off it. Is there any progress being made on getting these things contracted out and finally built?
Yeah, the Massey is a huge disappointment to us. Look, this is a bridge, or this is a tunnel that's 60 years old this year, would not survive an earthquake. In fact, if you ever want to read a horror story, read Delta's report on what happens in an earthquake to the Massey Tunnel. The thing essentially pitches up in the air, breaks in half, and floats down or tumbles down the Fraser River because of the current. Very frightening. It needs to be replaced, and yet, and the former government realized that. They start preloading. If you drive Highway 99, you'll still see the sand on the sides of the road. And lo and behold, the NDP killed that project. First they basically suspended it for a year and then killed it outright. This is going to set that project back probably 7 years by the time these guys figure out what they want to do with it. And our fear is they're going to end up doing exactly what they're doing with the Patello, which is not add any lane capacity, but finally when they get around to building it, just replace 4 lanes with another 4 lanes, which won't help anyone getting across that river. So we've launched a campaign. It's called buildmassey.ca. People can go there and sign a petition and email to Premier Horgan asking him to change his mind and save this project, get it going again. We've been running some radio ads. We've got some flyers and some newspaper ads going out as well. Just trying to encourage people look, we need to start picking up the ball and fighting for a new Massey Tunnel.
You're also concerned, I think, about proposed changes to the BC Agricultural Land Commission.
Yeah, this one bugs me as a Langley guy. So I live in the little township of Langley. I was a 2-term municipal councillor there, and 78% of the township's land mass is in the Agricultural Land Reserve. To put that in context, about 50% of Surrey's in the land reserve, 60% of Abbotsford, about 40% or maybe more, 60 or 70% of Delta, and I think 20 or 30% of Richmond. So for South Fraser communities, the Agricultural Land Reserve is the single most important component when trying to plan your community. The NDP have come out with this weird legislative change announcement where they essentially want to take away the right of private property owners within the ALR to apply for any changes to their land's designation. And the idea is they don't want speculators to try to get land out of the ALR. Well, Jim, the bottom line is people can ask as many times as they want. Ultimately, it's the Agricultural Land Commission that makes the decision whether or not land comes out. And frankly, a private property owner should have the right to ask, just like the ALC should have the right to say yes or no based on their legislation and mandate. There has not been huge swaths of land coming out of the ALR, just the opposite. Most of the time, land that's come out has been replaced on a 2-for-1 basis. So there is not this pressing need to do it. It's just, government, the NDP government, an activist government who believes that private property owners, I'm coming to the conclusion now based on this and some of their other taxes around housing, that they believe owning property is wrong and is something that needs to be punished, not something that needs to be encouraged in our society. I think it's really sad, and I think it's short-sighted, but typical of the NDP, who have always practiced the politics of envy. So, now they're saying, oh, you own that land, but you shouldn't even have the right to request any kind of look at it, any kind of change of it, even though, as if, 50 years ago, an NDP government got it perfectly right with the ALR, and, there's nothing that should have ever been adjusted. That's nonsense. I think most people will think it's nonsense, and if you care about private property rights, you should be up in arms about this one.
Well, also, too, I think they're looking at old technology. What about vertical farms? That's the rage around the rest of the world. So if you take away so much agricultural land on the ground, well, you can build a high-rise farm next to it and replace production and probably be even more productive.
Well, that's exactly it. So they want to ignore any innovation in farming. This is the same group that wants to stop or cap how big a house is that you could build on your own farmland. So let's say you buy 50 acres, you're farming it, and you want to build a giant house on it. Why shouldn't you? It's your land. But they say, no, absolutely not. They're going to cap it at a certain size, which frankly is a bit of it's a move against Punjabi farmers and Indo-Canadian farmers who put a lot of value on having multiple generations living with them. So they have larger houses because they often have grandparents, sometimes even great-grandparents living with them. Now they're saying, the NDP government's saying, no, that's somehow wrong, which again is absolutely crazy and silly. So I really chafe at the NDP government continuing to constantly down this path of stripping away people's home ownership and land ownership rights, claiming it's all for some societal good, which just happens to only line up with their, most ardent ideologue supporters.
Jordan, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thanks for having me.
My guest has been Jordan Bateman, Vice President of Communications for the Independent Contractors and Business Association. His website, icba.ca. You're listening to the Goddard Report on TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet, our YouTube channel, Talk Digital Network. If you have questions for Jordan or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated.